I walked into my grandfather Walter's mansion after my third shift of the day, my body aching from overwork. The annual family dinner was already in full swing when my millionaire grandfather hugged me and said, "Grandson, hope you are enjoying your $7,000 a month allowance." I froze, confusion washing over me. "What allowance? I am working 3 jobs and have never seen a single cent," I replied, watching his smile fade into shock. Before I continue this unbelievable story, let me know where you are watching from and hit subscribe so you will not miss how I confronted this family betrayal that changed everything about my relationships forever. My name is Stewart, 28 years old, drowning in student debt, while living in a cramped apartment on the wrong side of town. Anyone looking at me would never guess I was related to one of the wealthiest real estate developers in New England. My grandfather Walter built his empire from nothing, turning a single property investment into a portfolio worth hundreds of millions. Growing up, he was my hero. The man who taught me to fish, showed me how to change a tire, and told me stories about his humble beginnings. Our relationship had always been special. While my parents were often busy with their social climbing, Grandpa Walter would pick me up from school, take me to baseball games, and slip me $20 bills for ice cream with a wink. He would tell me, "Stewart, money is just paper unless you use it to build something meaningful." I held those words close, especially during the tough years after college, when that meaningful something seemed impossibly distant. My life after graduation became an endless cycle of work. I would wake at 4:30 in the morning for the opening shift at Bright Grounds Coffee, where I served lattes to business professionals who made more money before lunch than I did in a month. Afternoons were spent at a marketing company where I was an administrative assistant, essentially a glorified coffee runner for executives. Evenings and weekends I delivered packages for Swift Drop, often until midnight. Between shifts I would collapse onto my second-hand mattress, setting my alarm for the next grueling day. The call from Grandpa Walter came unexpectedly on a Tuesday. "Stewart, the annual family dinner is this Friday at 7. I would love to see you there." His voice warm and familiar. I hesitated, calculating the money I would lose by skipping my evening delivery shift, but the thought of seeing my grandfather overrode my financial concerns. "I would not miss it, Grandpa," I promised, ignoring the knot in my stomach. These family gatherings were always uncomfortable showcases of wealth and achievement, neither of which I possessed. When Friday arrived, I parked my rusted Honda between a gleaming BMW and a Tesla in the circular driveway of Walter's mansion. The limestone facade loomed impressively against the twilight sky windows, glowing with warm light. The door was opened by Thomas, the family butler who had worked for my grandfather since before I was born. "Master Stewart," he greeted me with a genuine smile. "It has been too long. The family is gathering in the East Lounge." I followed him across marble floors, past original artwork and antiques, worth more than everything I owned combined. The East Lounge was a spacious room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the manicured gardens and pool. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden glow over the assembled family members, all dressed impeccably. My sister Amelia was the first to notice me. At 25, 3 years younger than me, she looked like she had stepped out of a fashion magazine, in her designer dress, diamond earrings catching the light as she turned. "Stewart, you actually came," she said, air kissing my cheek. The scent of expensive perfume lingered as she stepped back to examine me. "You look tired." "3 jobs will do that to you," I replied, trying to keep my tone light despite the implied criticism. Amelia laughed as if I had told a joke. "You know you could always ask for help," she said, swirling champagne in a crystal flute. "I just got the keys to my new penthouse downtown. The views are absolutely killer." I bit back a comment about how she could afford such luxury without ever having held a real job. Instead, I asked, "New job going well? Daddy put me in charge of the marketing division at Reynolds Property Group," she said, referring to our father's company, which itself was a subsidiary of my grandfather's larger corporation. "I have my own assistant and everything." I nodded, wondering what qualified her to run a marketing division with her art history degree and zero experience. Before I could respond, my parents approached my mother and Chanel, my father, sporting his usual Rolex. "Stewart, darling," my mother Diana said, embracing me briefly. "We were beginning to think you were too busy for family." "Just working, Mom," I explained. "Bills do not pay themselves." "You know, son," my father James interjected, "pride is a poor substitute for progress. There is always a place for you at Reynolds if you would just—" "I am making my own way, Dad," I cut him off. having heard this speech countless times. What he never mentioned was that the place would be an entry-level position under someone younger and less qualified, but with better connections. The evening progressed predictably as we moved to the formal dining room. Aunt Sylvia complained about her recent plastic surgeon, Uncle Kevin boasted about his new yacht, and my cousins compared notes on their European vacations. I remained quiet, focusing on the exquisite food that represented a week of my grocery budget in a single meal. The conversation drifted to investments, with everyone sharing tips and success stories. I pushed my food around my plate, having nothing to contribute. When asked directly about my career plans, I muttered something about exploring opportunities, earning sympathetic looks that felt more like pity. Amelia dominated the conversation, detailing her new role and the apartment our parents had helped her invest in as a career milestone gift. I noticed she never actually specified what her job entailed beyond overseeing creative direction and strategic planning. The tension in my shoulders built with each passing moment, the familiar feeling of inadequacy threatening to choke me. Then, as dessert was being served, Grandpa Walter stood and made his way around the table to where I sat. He placed his hands on my shoulders, squeezing affectionately. "I am so proud of my grandson," he announced to the table. "Stewart, I hope you are enjoying your $7,000 a month allowance. I know it is not much compared to what some might receive, but I believe in letting young people build their own success." The room fell silent. I felt blood drain from my face as I looked up at him in confusion. "What allowance, Grandpa? I am working 3 jobs and have never seen a single cent." The silence deepened. I watched my grandfather's expression shift from pride to confusion, then to something darker. His eyes moved to my sister, then to my parents, who suddenly seemed intensely interested in their dessert plates. "Stewart," he said slowly, "I have been depositing $7,000 into your account every month since your college graduation in 2019. My heart pounded against my ribs. "Grandpa, I have never received any money from you except birthday and Christmas gifts. I have been living paycheck to paycheck for years." My father cleared his throat. "Walter, perhaps this is not the time or place." "No, James," my grandfather cut him off sharply. "If I have been sending my grandson money he has not been receiving, I want to know why. Now." My mother attempted to change the subject. "Did everyone try the creme brulee? The chef outdid himself tonight." "I do not care about the dessert, Diana," Walter said, his voice quiet but commanding. "I want to know where the money I have been sending to Stewart has gone." I looked around the table, noticing Amelia's suddenly pale face and my parents' obvious discomfort. "I want to see the statements," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the anger building inside me. "Walter, this is ridiculous," my father protested, standing up. "We can discuss financial matters another time." My grandfather fixed him with a steely gaze. "Sit down, James. I keep records of everything." He turned to Thomas, who stood discreetly by the door. "Please bring me the files from my study safe," the blue folder labeled Stewart Trust. While we waited in tense silence, I could feel my sister's eyes on me, pleading. My mother reached for her wineglass with slightly trembling hands. The weight of unspoken truths hung heavy in the air, making it difficult to breathe. Thomas returned with a thick blue folder which my grandfather placed on the table. He opened it methodically, revealing pages of bank statements and transfer receipts. "Here," he said, sliding several papers toward me. "Monthly transfers of $7,000 to the account we set up for you after graduation. Every month without fail since June 2019. I examined the documents, recognizing the bank but not the account number. "This is not my account," I said, confusion mixing with growing suspicion. "I never opened an account at First National." My grandfather frowned, pulling out additional paperwork. "This account was established in your name with your Social Security number." He continued flipping through pages until he found what he was looking for. "Here is the account opening documentation with your signature." He pushed the paper toward me. The signature looked similar to mine, but with subtle differences I could immediately recognize as forgery. My eyes moved from the paper to my sister, whose face had gone from pale to ashen. "That is not my signature," I said firmly. Grandpa Walter's expression hardened. He pulled out his phone and made a quick call. "Marcus, I need you to trace all transactions from account number 876590331 For the past 5 years. Yes, right now. Send everything to my email immediately. He hung up and looked directly at my sister. Amelia, do you have anything you want to tell us? Tears welled in her eyes. It was just a misunderstanding, she whispered. A misunderstanding of $420,000, my grandfather asked, his voice dangerously calm. My father stood again. Walter, Amelia is still young. We thought it best if what James Walter interrupted. If you redirected money intended for your struggling son to your daughter instead. My mother jumped in. Stewart has always been irresponsible with money, Walter. We were trying to protect him from himself. The accusation stung like a physical blow. Irresponsible. I have been working myself to exhaustion, trying to pay off student loans and keep a roof over my head. A chime from my grandfather's phone interrupted the argument. He examined the screen, his expression growing darker with each swipe. Finally, he placed the phone on the table screen up. Every single transfer I made to Stewart's account was redirected within 24 hours to Amelia's personal account, he said. And there are additional transfers to James and Diana's joint account labeled management fees. The room seemed to spin around me. My own family had been stealing from me for years while watching me struggle. My parents had seen me during holiday visits, clearly exhausted from overwork, yet said nothing. Amelia had flaunted her luxury lifestyle, knowing her comfort came at my expense. How could you? I asked, my voice breaking. How could you watch me work 3 jobs, skip meals to pay rent, put off medical care I needed, and say nothing? Amelia began to sob. We did not think you would ever find out. Grandpa never mentioned the money to you, and you just decided it should be yours. Instead, I finished for her. My father attempted to regain control of the situation. Stewart, you need to understand. The money would have been wasted on you. You have always lacked financial discipline. We were planning to tell you eventually, when you demonstrated more maturity. More maturity, I echoed in disbelief. I have been supporting myself completely, working 70-hour weeks, while you have been stealing money meant for me. And you question my maturity. My grandfather placed a hand on my shoulder. There is more, he said grimly. The account documents bear your parents' signatures as co-trustees. They had legal authority to manage the account I set up for you, but not to redirect the funds. The implications were clear. This was not just a family disagreement, it was fraud and identity theft. I pushed back from the table, needing space to breathe, to think. I cannot believe this. My own family. Stewart, please, my mother pleaded. It was always for your own good. You would have wasted it on that music career dream or some other fantasy. Her words confirmed what I had always suspected but never wanted to believe. My parents had no faith in me, no respect for my choices or dreams. I had given up my passion for music years ago to pursue a sensible business degree at their insistence, only to graduate and find them undermining me still. Unable to remain at the table a moment longer, I stood and walked out, ignoring their calls to come back and discuss things rationally. There was nothing rational about stealing from your own child. As I reached my car, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number with the local area code. Something compelled me to answer. Is this Stewart Reynolds? A professional female voice asked. Yes, this is he, I replied, trying to steady my voice. This is Alicia Johnson from First National Bank's fraud department. We have detected some concerning patterns on an account under your name and need to verify some information. Do you have a moment? I checked the time. 9:14 p.m. The timing seemed almost supernatural. Yes, I said, I have just discovered that account myself, and I have quite a lot to tell you. The next morning I met with Marcus Donovan, a lawyer specializing in financial fraud, whom my grandfather recommended. His office was sleek but comfortable, with certificates covering one wall and a window overlooking the city on another. Stewart, he said, after hearing my story, what your family did constitutes identity theft, fraud, and possible embezzlement. You have grounds for both criminal and civil cases. I rubbed my temples, trying to process everything. I never thought I would be considering legal action against my own parents and sister. Marcus leaned forward. Family dynamics often complicate these situations, but what they did was not just morally wrong, it was illegal. They stole over $400,000 from you while watching you struggle financially. That afternoon, Accompanied by both Marcus and my grandfather, I filed a police report. Detective Sandra Williams of the Financial Crimes Unit listened intently, taking detailed notes as I provided the bank statements, transfer records, and the forged signature. "This is a clear case of identity theft and fraud," she confirmed. "We will need statements from all parties involved, including your grandfather as the source of the funds." Walter nodded firmly. "I will provide whatever is needed to see justice done." I had no idea my own son and granddaughter would do something like this. The investigation moved swiftly. Bank records revealed the full extent of the scheme. My parents had opened the account using my personal information shortly after my college graduation. They had forged my signature on the account documents and established automatic transfers to redirect any deposits immediately to Amelia's account. A smaller percentage went to their own account as management fees for a trust that was never properly established. Further investigation uncovered that the money had funded Amelia's luxury apartment, multiple vacations, a collection of designer clothes and accessories, and several investments that were actually personal expenses disguised as business ventures. My parents had used their portion to renovate their vacation home in Florida and purchase a new boat. All while I worked multiple jobs, lived in a rundown apartment with unreliable heat, and once developed a serious infection because I could not afford antibiotics until my next paycheck. Within 2 weeks, the district attorney filed criminal charges against my sister and parents for identity theft, fraud, and embezzlement. They hired expensive lawyers and publicly portrayed themselves as concerned family members who were only trying to protect an irresponsible young man from himself. Few were convinced by this narrative once the evidence became public. My grandfather arranged a meeting at his home, insisting that my parents and sister attend. They arrived looking nervous and defensive, their lawyers having advised against the meeting but being overruled by their fear of being cut off from Walter's wealth permanently. "I have never been so disappointed," my grandfather began, his voice heavy with emotion. "I raised you better than this, James. I taught you about honesty and integrity." My father stared at the floor. "We thought we were doing what was best for Stewart." "By stealing from him?" Walter asked incredulously. "By watching him work himself to exhaustion while living in poverty when I had provided funds specifically to help him establish himself. He would have wasted it." My mother insisted, though, with less conviction than before. I finally spoke up. "On what?" "On rent for a decent apartment, on health care, on paying off my student loans so I could work 1 job instead of 3, on actually having the time and resources to build a career." Amelia wiped away tears. "I am sorry, Stewart. I never thought about what it was doing to you. I just saw the money and took it." "That is the problem," I replied. "None of you thought about me at all. You saw me struggling and did nothing." After hours of difficult conversation, we reached an agreement. They would plead guilty to reduce charges, make full financial restitution with interest, and agree to psychological counseling. In exchange, I would not push for maximum penalties. The arrangement would be formalized through the courts. My grandfather took additional steps to ensure such betrayal could never happen again. He revised his will, placing my inheritance in a secure trust with independent trustees. He also provided me with immediate access to funds that would help me rebuild my life, this time with proper safeguards in place. "I failed you by not checking on the money directly with you," he told me privately. "That will never happen again." With the stolen money returned plus interest, I found myself in control of nearly $500,000. The first thing I did was pay off my student loans entirely. The weight that lifted from my shoulders was indescribable, like finally being able to stand upright after years of being forced to crawl. I quit all 3 jobs and took time to recover from the physical and emotional exhaustion of the past 5 years. I moved into a comfortable apartment in a safe neighborhood with reliable heat and no mold. I saw doctors for health issues I had been ignoring due to cost. I slept for what felt like the first time in years. But money alone could not heal the broken trust. For that, I needed professional help. 6 months have passed since that fateful family dinner. The criminal proceedings ended with my parents and sister receiving probation, community service, and mandatory financial ethics training. The civil settlement was paid in full, and I have established a new relationship with money, one based on security rather than constant anxiety. My grandfather and I meet weekly for lunch, our bond stronger now through shared adversity. He has become my mentor in business and investing, teaching me the skills my parents never bothered to share. "You are doing remarkably well, Stewart," he told me during our most recent lunch. "Many people would have been broken by what happened to you. The truth is, I was broken for a while. The betrayal, by those who should have protected me, cut deeper than any financial hardship. I sought therapy to process the anger and grief that threatened to consume me. Dr. Lin helped me understand that my parents' actions reflected their own insecurities and flaws, not my worth. They projected their fears onto you," she explained during one session. "Their behavior says everything about them and nothing about your capabilities or character." Healing came gradually. I reconnected with my passion for music, joining a local band and playing weekend gigs. I enrolled in business courses to better manage my newfound financial stability. I made new friends who valued me for myself, not my family connections or wealth potential. My relationship with my parents and sister remains complicated. We have had several family counseling sessions, painful encounters where years of resentment and disappointment surfaced. They have apologized repeatedly, though I sometimes wonder if they are more sorry they got caught than sorry for the harm they caused. Amelia has shown the most genuine remorse. She sold her luxury apartment and car, moving into a modest condo and taking an entry-level position at a company unaffiliated with our family. "I need to prove to myself that I can succeed on my own merits," she told me during a tentative coffee meeting. My parents struggle more with accountability. They lost significant standing in their social circles when the story became public. My father stepped down from his executive position, though he remains on the board. My mother threw herself into charity work, perhaps seeking redemption through public service. I have neither fully forgiven nor completely cut them off. Instead, I am learning to set boundaries while leaving space for potential reconciliation if their actions eventually match their words of remorse. The most unexpected outcome has been my new sense of purpose. I have established a foundation that provides emergency financial assistance to working students, helping them avoid the desperate circumstances I endured. The Freedom Step Foundation has already helped dozens of students pay for unexpected medical bills, car repairs, and housing emergencies without going into crushing debt. My grandfather matched my initial investment in the foundation, doubling our capacity to help. "This is how you turn pain into purpose," he said, his eyes shining with pride. "You are creating something meaningful from something terrible." I still have moments of anger when I think about the years of unnecessary struggle, the late nights delivering packages in dangerous neighborhoods, the times I rationed food to make rent, the constant anxiety that dominated every waking moment, all while my own family watched and said nothing enjoying the fruits of money meant for me. But those moments grow less frequent and less intense. I am building a new life focused on growth rather than grievance possibility, rather than pain. Sometimes the people we trust the most are capable of the deepest betrayals, but sometimes through those betrayals we discover our own strength and the true meaning of integrity. I would never have chosen this path, but having walked it, I can appreciate how it shaped me into someone stronger and more compassionate than I might otherwise have become. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How did you rebuild and move forward? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that overcoming betrayal is possible. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember that your worth is never determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to treat yourself and others.